Too many algae bloom in the bodies of water, affecting the marine organisms living into them. An African giant snail invading the Southern America ecosystems. And the turning on and off of genes influenced by our polluted environment that may cause the development of various diseases. These are examples of negative anthropogenic impacts on the environment, consequences caused by human activities that are stressing the environment. But first of all, on an environmental perspective, what is an anthropogenic impact? An anthropogenic impact refers to the effects of human activities, whether it stresses the environment or not. Human activities such as the mining of rocks, the use of fertilizers for agriculture, buying of exotic pets on a pet trade, and the emission of fine particles by transportations and factories can cause an impact on the environment, might as well as to ourselves. While these activities can foster economic growth, there are underlying severe consequences that may occur if we do not manage these activities properly.
The sedimentary cycle refers to the weathering of rocks, erosion of minerals, transport, deposition, and burial. Humans can affect the cycle in various ways. For instance, weathering agents increase due to pollution and acid rain caused by humans. Several activities such as agriculture and strip mining can increase erosion, influence the rain absorption of the land, and increase the chemical content in groundwater. One example of a sedimentary cycle is a natural cycle called the Phosphorus Cycle. The Phosphorus Cycle is a natural process by which phosphorus moves through the land, water, and living organisms. Phosphorus is vital for plant and animal growth as well as the health of microbes inhabiting the soil. It is also a critical component of nucleotides used to make DNA and RNA molecules. Furthermore, the formation of the phospholipid bilayer seen in cell membranes also requires phosphorus. In the cycle, the first step involves the extraction of phosphorus from the rocks by weathering. Weather events like rain and other sources of erosion can result in phosphorus being washed away into the soil. Second, plants, fungi, and microorganisms in the soil can absorb phosphorus and grow. Furthermore, phosphorus can be washed away into the near water systems. Plants can also directly absorb phosphorus from water for their growth. Animals also acquire phosphorus from drinking water and eating plants. Finally, when the plants and animals die, decomposition takes place, resulting in the return of phosphorus back to the environment. Living organisms on the environment can use this phosphorus, and step 2 of the cycle repeats.
Now, the real question is, are we humans involved in such cycle? As we said before, we humans use fertilizer for our agricultural purposes, and some of these fertilizers are composed of phosphorus, adding more phosphorus level in the soil, and there will be impact in the near aquatic system. Addition of natural phosphorus in the water at its natural rate is called natural eutrophication. Because of the natural supply of the phosphorus over time, it gives nutrients into the water and increases the productivity of the ecosystem. However, the increase of phosphorus level on the water can be bad. It will drive to excessive growth of algae. Algae are very toxic to plants and animals. Therefore, it will harm the aquatic organism within it and making the water inhabitable.
Human activities can also affect the turning on and off of genes. Before that, we need to understand what is epigenetics. Epigenetics is the study of how DNA, the genetic material, interacts with several smaller molecules found within cells that can activate and deactivate genes. The genetic changes are regular and natural events, but many factors like age, environment, and disease state can also influence these changes. Genetic modifications can manifest as generally as how cells differentiate to end up as skin cells, liver cells, brain cells, and other types of cells. Or, epigenetic change can have more damaging effects that can result in diseases. For instance, from an environmental perspective, the breathing in of fine particles inducing air pollution that comes from the smokes of cars and factories can be connected with epigenetic changes that may increase the risk of disease.
Epigenetic modification associated with air pollution is called DNA methylation. It is a process in which a methyl group inhibits certain gene expressions by hindering the cellular transcription machinery. A group of researchers from Columbia University set out to determine whether the fine particles in air pollution alter DNA methylation in immune cells called CD4+ T helper cells, immune cells responsible for inflammatory response. 10 healthy volunteers aged 19 to 49 years were given an inactive placebo for 2 weeks before being exposed to filtered air for 2 hours. They then took the placebo for 4 weeks and were exposed to air containing fine particles from vehicle exhaust for 2 hours. The researchers found that exposure to exhaust particles from outdoor air pollution was associated with DNA methylation changes. Such changes may increase the risk of having asthma, heart disease, or even lung cancer, all because of human-induced air pollution.
Another consequences of a negative anthropogenic impact is the spread of invasive species. Invasive species are organisms that can cause ecological or economic harm in a new environment where they are not native. They can be plants, animals, insects, or even microbes. Humans are the primary reasons why invasive species spread into the environments, whether they do it intentionally or not. One example is the giant African land snail, or the Ecatina fulica. The species is native to East Africa, but is widely spread to other parts of the world through the pet trade, as a food resource and by accidental introduction. The species was established in China since 1931, where the initial point of distribution is at a city called Xiamen. It has also spread to the Pratas Islands of Taiwan, India, Southeast Asia, and the West Indies. The species was also established in the US, 1936 through imports for educational purposes and as pets. In Bhutan, the species is considered as invasive species that attack plants, beetles, and spread infective parasites affecting the native species. In many places, the snails are pests in agriculture and household with the ability to transmit humans and plants pathogens. They can also damage buildings by eating stucco and similar substances that contain calcium. In the wild, these species can harbor parasitic roundworms that can cause severe and life-threatening meningitis in humans. All these are the reasons why the giant African land snail is one of the top 100 invasive species in the world, and is mostly because of human activities.
With all the negative anthropogenic impacts on the environment brought about by human activities, we tend to ask ourselves, aren't humans the most invasive species of all? Well, the answer is no, since we are the medium of the spread of invasive species. But realizing how much damage we have done and can be done in the future, we can think that us humans are the ultimate invaders of the environment and to ourselves. Nevertheless, we are also the only species in any position to do anything about it. If we start to properly manage our natural resources without abuse, and let ourselves be mindful of the environmental consequences of our actions, then perhaps we can build back better for a green and sustainable world.